The University Grants Commission has just dropped what many are calling a bombshell. New regulations that have set off a firestorm across the country, with protests erupting from Lucknow to Kanpur. And now, a nationwide shutdown being planned for February 1st, 2026. But what exactly is happening here? And why are so many people up in arms? Let me break this down for you. The UGC has introduced something called the Promotion of Equity in Higher Education Institutions Regulations 2026. On paper, it sounds noble enough, right? The goal is to tackle caste-based discrimination in universities and colleges. But here's where things get controversial. The new rules define caste-based discrimination in a very specific way. According to Clause 3C, discrimination is recognized only when it happens against students from scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward classes. Notice what's missing? Students from the general category, often referred to as the unreserved category, are completely left out of this protection framework. Think about what this means practically. If a general category student faces harassment or discrimination based on their caste identity, these new regulations offer them no institutional protection, no grievance redressal mechanism, no committee to hear their complaints. It's as if their experiences simply don't count under this new system. The regulations also establish something called equity squads and equity committees in every higher education institution. These bodies have significant power to investigate complaints and recommend punishments. But here's the kicker. Critics point out that there's no mandatory representation from the general category in these committees. So you have committees with unchecked authority making decisions about students who have no voice in the process. What's really got people worried is the lack of safeguards against false complaints. The original draft had provisions to punish those who filed malicious complaints, but that was removed from the final version. Students like Jatin Shukla from Lucknow University are saying this creates a climate of fear where anybody could be falsely accused and have their academic career destroyed. The backlash has been swift and widespread. Student organizations across Uttar Pradesh have taken to the streets. In Sambhal, members of Brahmin Shakti Sangh submitted memorandums to the Prime Minister. In Kushinagar, the International Brahmin Organization led protests at district headquarters. The common thread in all these protests? The feeling that these regulations create a presumption of guilt against certain communities. Legal challenges are already mounting. 2 separate petitions have been filed in the Supreme Court, with Chief Justice Suryakant set to hear them. The petitioners argue that by limiting the scope of protection to only certain categories, the UGC has violated the fundamental right to equality before law. They're calling the regulations unconstitutional, arbitrary, and discriminatory. Political leaders have also jumped into the fray. Mayawati has flagged concerns about what she calls a draconian law. UP Congress President Ajay Rai has accused the central government of dividing people through these regulations. Even scientist and commentator Anand Ranganathan has criticized the move, saying that punishing students for sins they never committed isn't justice, it's injustice.
And now, the ultimate form of protest is being planned. A Bharat Bandh, a complete shutdown of the country has been called for February 1st, 2026. Organizations like the Karni Sena and various student groups are mobilizing for what they're calling a fight against unjust regulations. The irony isn't lost on many observers. Here we have regulations designed to promote equity and fight discrimination, but they're being accused of creating new forms of discrimination. The very communities these rules claim to protect are now being pitted against others in what many see as a zero-sum game. What makes this particularly sensitive is the timing and context. This comes at a moment when caste tensions in educational institutions are already high, following tragic incidents like those involving Rohit Vemula and Payal Tadvi. The Supreme Court had actually directed the UGC to frame these new regulations while hearing pleas from their mothers. As February 1st approaches, the question remains, will this Bharat Bandh force the government to reconsider these regulations, or will it deepen the divisions that these rules were supposedly meant to heal? One thing is certain, the debate over equity, justice and fairness in our educational institutions is far from over.